Hello, fans, collectors, and investors. Welcome back to Iconic Baseball. I am Iconic Al. This might be the most important video I've ever made. I am very excited to announce the YouTube-appointed MLB all-time positional GOATs. I'm talking about the greatest in Major League history at each position. How did I come to these greatest of all-time players? Well, over the past couple months, on my YouTube polls page, I have floated out these surveys on the poll section of my YouTube account. And based on the responses that I got from you, the YouTube community, we have pretty good consensus on most of these positions. So I am very excited. I'm going to unveil some cards that I've never shown before. And some of them are among my best. And without any further ado, here are the positional GOATs, the greatest of all time in Major League Baseball.
Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and cracker jack. I don't care if I never get back. Let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
All right, I'm pumped. This is the first time I'll be showing some of these cards on YouTube, and it was a lot of fun to run these polls and see what the results were. And I was pretty impressed with the YouTube community. They, pretty much had consensus and pretty much right on the money as far as I'm concerned with how the results came out. And we'll start at the top here. The greatest of all time at first base. Your choices were Jimmy Fox, Albert Pujols, and Lou Gehrig. I think those were pretty much clear-cut. I mean, your top three in baseball history right there. And overwhelmingly, Lou Gehrig was the choice at 64%. And this is my Lou Gehrig card. Very proud of this card. One of the favorite items that I own, quite honestly, in my collection. A 1931 W517 hand-cut Lou Gehrig card from his playing days, from his playing prime. And one of those cards that I look at and I'm just so thankful to own. We know the story of Lou Gehrig. We know the tragedy. But what gets lost is how truly great of a player he was. He amassed 113 WAR. He was a .340 career hitter. He hit 493 home runs in an era when nobody did that. So this is, a 7-time world champion. Lou Gehrig is, I think, far and away deserving of the GOAT title at first base. The greatest first baseman in baseball history. I think that's a slam dunk. And again, this is one of my crown jewels of my collection. Graded a PSA 3, which is an amazing grade to have for a card from 1931. So there's a PSA 3 of this 1931 W517 hand cut. Look at that great portrait, great color. Just a smiling image of Lou Gehrig. How can you not love it? And these are all blank backs. Nice clean back on that one. Looks like a good, honest cut. Certainly looks like an old cut. Someone had cut those from a vending sheet back in the day, I assume. Some off-centering there, but generally presents very, very nicely. All right, so that's first base, Lou Gehrig. Next up, second base. Your choices were Napoleon Lajoie, Joe Morgan, Rogers Hornsby, and Eddie Collins. And as I expected, the clear-cut winner at 68%, Rogers Hornsby. No big surprise there. Hornsby, I think, far and away deserving of the GOAT title at second base. He hit for a career 358. That's why, I think you could make an argument that he might be the greatest right-handed hitter in baseball history. So, just so happened to be a second baseman, and just so happens he amassed 127.3 WAR. And that's pretty impressive. So I think the other players certainly are deserving. Lajoie at 106.9 WAR, Joe Morgan at 100.4 WAR. Eddie Collins, 124.4 WAR, so some great deserving candidates there. But my God, Rogers Hornsby, I think, yep, he should far and away be the GOAT at second base. And this is a 33 G.O.A.T that I recently had graded. Came back a 2.5, good plus, which I'm very happy with. One of those cards that I'm very, very, very grateful to own. Nice, clean, 33 G.O.A.T Hornsby. Again, how could you not love that? All right, moving on. We are at third base. Your choices were Mike Schmidt, Eddie Matthews, George Brett, Wade Boggs, and Chipper Jones. Again, a very, very decisive win for the great Michael Jack Schmidt, or as Adam from Vintage Sanctuary calls him, Chuck Norris. I guess he does bear somewhat of a resemblance there to Chuck Norris. But there's my Mike Schmidt rookie card. It's rated a PSA 7, and one that I've had for a while. Really like that card, despite being a multiplayer card, which generally don't prefer multiplayer cards, but I like that card. It's a kind of a charming pose of Mike Schmidt with some other rookie third baseman that didn't go on to as much success as Mike Schmidt. I mean, what can you say about Mike Schmidt? 106.8 WAR, 3-time MVP award winner, 548 career home runs, 10-time Gold Glove Award winner. So all around third baseman. You really can't beat that. However, there's a man named Nolan Arenado that in 5 years or so, we could be talking about him in this top 5 and maybe beyond. He, I think, has the greatest chance in today's game to maybe supplant Mike Schmidt at the top of this list. So for now, Mike Schmidt, you're safe. Number 1, you're the third base GOAT. And YouTube agrees. 72% is pretty powerful. But in 5 years, this is why I want to kind of repeat this exercise, maybe every 5 years or so, because that might be enough time to reevaluate and then see where Nolan Arenado and guys like Manny Machado are on that third base list. All right, that's third base. Oh, and just give you a closer look at this. That's a 73 Topps Michael Jack Schmidt rookie card. And again, you'll see all these again on my countdown videos, but figured I'd pull out my best of each guy for this positional GOAT video. All right, next up, shortstop. Again, pretty clear consensus. We had Derek Jeter, Ernie Banks, Honus Wagner, Cal Ripken, and Alex Rodriguez. And your clear winner was Honus Wagner. That's my 48 Leaf. Technically 49 Leaf, but a card from his coaching days, and a more affordable option for someone who, like me, who currently doesn't have the budget for a playing days Wagner. Still a very nice vintage card that pictures Wagner during his coaching days, and kind of a funny pose of him putting some snuff into his mouth. Kind of ironic, because there was all that speculation that he didn't want to be pictured on a tobacco card earlier in his life, but I think it's kind of ironic and funny, and I just like that card a lot. And I think for a PSA 3, it's one of the nicer 3s I've ever seen. Really is. Nice crisp corners. The centering isn't all that bad. Very clean. There's no staining on it. It's just a very clean 3. I mean, it looks more like a 5 or a 6 to me, so I'm not sure. There's no surface damage. I didn't see any creasing on it. One of those cards that I might reevaluate, maybe see if I can regrade it someday, but man, that's a really nice looking 3. Oh, anyway, yeah, Honus Wagner. Honus Wagner, what can you say? Of course, he's the greatest shortstop of all time. He's got 130.8 WAR. He's won 8 batting titles, 328 career hitter, 1909 World Series champion, defeated Ty Cobb's Tigers. I mean, Ripken, yeah, you could say, yeah, there's a good argument there that he's maybe the greatest modern era shortstop, but Honus Wagner, he was regarded as the greatest shortstop defensively of his day, as well as being the greatest hitter in his league for essentially his whole career. So there's your shortstop GOAT, Honus Wagner. Next up, catcher. And this, again, was no surprise. You had Pudge Rodriguez, Yogi Berra, Johnny Bench, Mickey Cochran, and Josh Gibson on the top 5 here. And no surprise, Johnny Bench garnered 51% of the vote. So he is your YouTube-appointed catching GOAT. Johnny Bench, that's his 68 Topps rookie card. Yeah, I agree, once again, with the rest of YouTube that, this guy had 75.1 WAR as a catcher, which is ridiculous. Won all those championships, I think, 3 championships with the Reds, the Big Red Machine? At least 2, but yeah, 2-time MVP, 10 Gold Glove Awards. What else can this guy do? He's far and away, in my opinion, the greatest all-around catcher in baseball history. Cool pose of him with the hat backwards. He did it before Griffey did it. But yeah, nice, beautiful card. It's a PSA 5. Again, one I've had for a long time. Recently graded, though. And I'm really happy with the way it graded. It's a very crisp card. Very happy to have the 5. Johnny Bench, the catching GOAT. But you have to give a shout out to Josh Gibson because, again, you don't know. I didn't know how many votes he'd get. Turns out, 18%. Pretty good. Enough people really believe Josh Gibson might have been the greatest catcher of all time, and I can't argue with that. He very well could have been. We just don't have a complete picture of his statistics, and it's just very hard to gauge how great Josh Gibson was. You know, the stories say his arm was phenomenal. He was a great defensive catcher, and may have hit 800 home runs. So it's very hard to say, but you know, Johnny Bench has the edge of having complete statistics and having the opportunity to play at the major league level for his whole career. So we'll say Bench is the GOAT, but honorable mention or special mention to the great Josh Gibson as well. All right, on to right field. And this was no surprise. Here are your choices. Mel Ott, Hank Aaron, Roberto Clemente, Babe Ruth. I mean, that's a pretty dense field of contestants there. No big surprise. Babe Ruth was your runaway champion here at 59%. The vote was split a bit low. Hank Aaron garnering 22%, Roberto Clemente garnering 17%. But, yep, guess who? The Babe. He is your guy. And I'm very proud of this card. One of my all-time, might be my favorite card. The 1923 W515-1 Babe Ruth hand cut. And this is from his MVP season of 1923. This is from the year that Yankee Stadium opened, which is called the house that Ruth built. And this is card number 3 in the set, which was Ruth's number. So I love the image on this card. I love all that surrounds that card, the history of Yankee Stadium being built that year, Babe Ruth winning his one and only MVP award that year, the card being number 3 in the set. My God, I just love this card. Look at the color on that. It's a kind of an early caricature, line caricature of Babe Ruth with brilliant color. How can you not love this card? And it gets a PSA 1.5, but really the greatest secondary to the eye appeal with these kind of cards. It's the blank back. They are all blank back. But a very clean image, well centered. There's the Bambino looking at you. All right. I mean, what can you say about Babe Ruth's numbers? That hasn't already been said. But 183.1 WAR, which is number 1 all time. No one has more WAR than Babe Ruth. You forget that he hit 342. He got on base at a ridiculous rate. I mean, his slugging percentage was 690. His OPS was 1.164. His OPS plus was 206. He is number 1 all time in slugging, OPS, and OPS plus. Number 1 all time. So he's the guy. No big surprise there. Let's move on. Center field. The great Willie Mays wins with ease. Your choices were Joe DiMaggio, Interest Speaker, and Ty Cobb, and Mickey Mantle, and finally Willie Mays. And Willie Mays handily wins the GOAT title at center field, and I can't disagree. There's no way you can disagree. I mean, all these players are phenomenal, all-time greats, deserving of being on that top 5. But when Joe DiMaggio and Tris Peaker are garnering 0% of your vote, that's pretty telling. And that's actually kind of amazing, because I thought they'd at least get some votes. But yeah, Cobb 16% and Mickey Mantle with 19%. Mays over the top with 66%. Pretty no doubt sort of vote total here. Willie Mays, maybe the greatest all-around baseball player in baseball history. He is the prototype five-tool player. Throw, run, hit for power. He could run the bases. He could steal bases. I mean, what else could you do on the field to beat another team? Mays could do it all. So that is my favorite Willie Mays card is the 54 Bowman, or at least the favorite Willie Mays card that I own is the 54 Bowman, and a nice kneeling pose, smiling Willie Mays, classic. I think this is a fourth year card. So it's an early career Willie Mays, and from a breakout season for him. But just a beautiful card and a PSA 3, presents well, and I just love the image. I love the mid-50s stuff is just gold in my opinion. And 156 WAR for this guy, a 301 hitter, 3,293 hits, 660 home runs famously, and stole 338 bases. So he was just the best all-around player. Simple as that. So there's your center field GOAT, Willie Mays, and the oldest living Hall of Famer. All right. Now we're going to left field. And your choices were Ricky Henderson, Ted Williams, Stan Musial, Barry Bonds. And so, again, pretty clear consensus here, although there was a little bit of a kind of a split between Williams and Bonds, but ultimately Williams prevailed over Barry Bonds. So your GOAT at left field is Ted Williams. He is your left field GOAT, according to YouTube polls. And again, how can you argue? There's no question around Ted Williams like there is around Barry Bonds. We can't truly believe all of Barry Bonds' numbers. We know that they were inflated. Whereas Ted Williams, he had great numbers, and they might have been greater had he not been in the service for those 4 years of his career. So very, very likely that Ted Williams would be around that 650 home run mark, maybe even 700 home runs if he didn't miss 4 years to the wars. And so that's my favorite Ted Williams card. D1 Bowman, just a great mid-career Ted Williams card, classic pose, finishing his left-handed swing. Wow, I love that card. Every time I look at it, well-centered, just a very artful pose. Those 50s Bowman cards are just gorgeous. Nice clean card. I don't kind of know how it got a 2.5, but looks more like a 4 or 5 to me, but I love it. Card I've had for a long time. And Ted Williams. What can you say about Ted Williams? I mean, he hit 344 for a career, and he has 122 WAR. But the one thing I think people forget, do you know who leads all of baseball all time in on-base percentage? It's Ted Williams. He got on base. Okay, get ready for this. For his career, at a 482 clip, all right? So almost half the time he came to bat, he got on base. That is amazing. 482 on-base percentage. Number one all time. That's all I need to say there. Ted Williams is your left field GOAT, with honorable mention to Barry Bonds. All right, on to the pitchers. Now, this is where it gets a little interesting. Left-handed starting pitchers. Now, this was a very tough list to make. How do you represent every era effectively without leaving anybody out? You really have to leave people out. I think the right-handed starting pitching list might have been even tougher, but the ones that I gave were Warren Spahn, Randy Johnson, Eddie Plank, Sandy Koufax, and Lefty Grove. And Sandy Koufax won pretty handily, and I was really surprised by that. I agree that Sandy Koufax is certainly one of the greatest pitchers of all time, certainly in the conversation for greatest left-handed starting pitcher of all time. But certainly the YouTube community has spoken that Sandy Koufax is the greatest left-handed starting pitcher of all time. And I would have picked Lefty Grove personally. So maybe we could split this up to modern era versus pre-war era. And we'll maybe keep the best of each. So we'll call Sandy Koufax the greatest modern era left-handed starting pitcher, and then we'll give the greatest pre-war left-handed starting pitcher to Lefty Grove, because I think that's fair, because he got 9% of the vote, and Koufax, with his 47%, gets the greatest of the modern era. So here's Koufax. That's my 62 Topps Koufax from his prime playing days. And then we'll display a Lefty Grove 34 G.O.A.T. So those are my top left-handed pitchers there. Your greatest of the pre-war era and the greatest of the post-war era. Let's start with Koufax, because he actually won the vote. 62 Topps. This is a really card I'm proud of. Excellent mint 6. Very high grade for this card. It's very difficult to find 62 Topps cards that are decently centered like this. It's kind of a condition-sensitive year with the edges and the borders. There's the back. Again, you'll see these cards all again through the course of my countdown, but one of the Koufax cards that I'm very proud of. 62 Topps. Beautiful card. And then the great Lefty Grove, which I would argue is the greatest left-handed starting pitcher of all time. If you just look at the numbers, Lefty Grove, he compiled 106 WAR. You put that up against Koufax, 48.9 WAR. I think it's pretty clear that Lefty Grove was the greatest, but that's my opinion. YouTube says Sandy Koufax. I think we're talking about two different cases here, though. We're talking about peak versus totals. I think Lefty Grove had the greatest total career as a left-handed starting pitcher. Koufax very well may have been the greatest peak. So it's just, what do you prefer? A peak guy or a more of a total guy? I tend to go more toward total, but I see the argument of Koufax being a peak guy because he was phenomenal for about 6 years. Phenomenal. All right, so we have Lefty Grove, Sandy Koufax. On to right-handed starting pitchers. Now, this is really one of the cards that I'm most excited to show because it's never been shown before on YouTube, and I'm very proud of it. Your choices were Greg Maddux, Satchel Paige, Cy Young, Tom Seaver, and Walter Johnson. And it was pretty clear split, actually. Walter Johnson won the vote at 33%, but also note that Maddux at 25% was a pretty close second. So I'm going to do the same thing as I did with the left-handers, where I put the greatest pre-war, give it to Walter Johnson, and the greatest post-war right-handed starting pitcher, we'll give that to Greg Maddux. I think that's a fair way to do it. And obviously, there's a lot of guys that I would have loved to put on this top, 5. Unfortunately, YouTube polls only let me put 5 selections on these polls, or else, Christy Mathewson, Roger Clemens, Grover Alexander, Pedro Martinez, Bob Gibson, Jim Palmer. I mean, there's so many other selections here that we could have put on, and I really felt bad leaving Steve Carlton off of the left-hander list. So it's hard to wean it down to 5 with these pitchers. But here we are. Walter Johnson is your greatest right-handed starting pitcher of all time, and I would argue the greatest pitcher of all time. If you look at the numbers, has the highest WAR as a pitcher. His ERA is just sparkling, a 2.17 career ERA. So that's Walter Johnson. This is a card that I'm very proud of. This is a 1912 T207 Walter Johnson in an SGC3, the old SGC label, which I prefer to the new SGC label. I'm probably the only person that thinks that, but I like how it de-emphasizes the grade. It is more about the card than about the grade, and that's why I like the old SGC label better. Just my personal opinion. But this is a Recruit Little cigar back, and just one of the cards that I look at. Again, very grateful to own. From Walter Johnson's prime playing days. And then modern era, or post-war, Gregory Allen Maddux. Just a freak of nature. And as good of a pitcher as he was, you forget, people don't even know. Do you know who has the most Gold Glove awards in baseball history? This guy. 18 Gold Glove awards. It's ungodly. No one will ever do that again. 18 Gold Glove awards. So he could field his position better than any other pitcher in baseball history, arguably. I mean, this guy had a complete game. The professor. Immaculate control. Could throw any pitch in any count. Was a master. So, can you come up with two better right-handed starting pitchers than these guys? I challenge you. Greg Maddux, post-war. Walter Johnson, pre-war. There you have it. And we're getting to the end here. The video's getting kind of long. Sorry, guys. So we're at DH. DH was pretty split. It was kind of hard. We had Paul Molitor, David Ortiz, Shohei Ohtani, Edgar Martinez, and Frank Thomas. And although the vote was split a little bit, with Ortiz getting 25%, Edgar getting 22%, ultimately it was Big Hurt, Frank Thomas, garnering the DH GOAT title at 43%. Again, this is one I've showed before. This is a high pop wax 1990 score Frank Thomas rookie card. Congratulations, Frank Thomas. You are the GOAT of the DH world. And I can't say I disagree. I think that's the right pick. Based on his career totals, what he was able to do as a hitter. But honorable mention to David Ortiz and Edgar Martinez. And, give Shohei Ohtani another 10 years and we'll see where he winds up on that list. Okay, and finally, last but not least, relief pitching. We had Goose Gossage, Trevor Hoffman, Dennis Eckersley, Mariano Rivera, and Hoyt Wilhelm. And pretty slam dunk results here as expected. Mariano Rivera at 85% wins your all-time relief pitcher GOAT title here. And who else would it be? Of course, it's Mariano. He has the highest ERA plus in baseball history. I don't know if people know that, but his ERA plus is 2.05, which is ungodly. No one is even close. His 56.3 WAR is a crazy WAR considering he was a closer. He still amassed 56.3 WAR and a 2.21 career ERA. All those World Series titles that the Yankees won, you have to give Mariano an assist on all those. And still, the ruler of saves at 652 career saves. Number one all time, obviously. So he is your relief pitching GOAT. This is his 52 Bowman. Funny looking card and weird street clothes, but I like it. It's endearing. From that high pop wax era. It's a PSA 9. And we're going to wrap this video up because it's getting long. All right. Well, thank you so much, guys, for following me on this process. Those cards that I was really excited to show here. Really excited to show this Walter Johnson, one of my crown jewels. The other one that I was really excited to show was that Babe Ruth card, which is right here. These are some of my all-time favorite and best cards in my collection. So I hope you're enjoying this and as much as I'm enjoying showing them. So until next time, everyone, thanks for all your votes on this poll questions. And until next time, keep collecting and stay iconic.